try to start your 5-club pattern at the width that you eventually end up in to start the back crosses so you can start them sooner. Here's an exercise that'll solve that problem a lot quicker. Just do 5 throws of the basic pattern and then go into 5 back crosses. Then back into the basic pattern.
Can I do 6?
Do 6, yeah. All right, and stop. You're starting the same way you were starting with 7 balls, with your left hand out here. So even though you're going to be wide, from the start, you still want the throw from the start to start through the center of your body, not from out here going this way, but you want to go that way and wide. So get your elbows in. Yeah, get your elbows in and bring your hands in a little closer. You can still throw wide from there. Just point it out to the side instead of coming from outside of your body. Yeah, there you go. Think about what kind of pattern you want it to look like after you finish those back crosses, and then create that from the very first throw. Now follow through on that last throw. That's the other thing, is don't think about the basic pattern until you've finished following through on your final back cross throw. Same thing before you go into the back crosses. Don't think about the back crosses until you've finished following through on your last basic throw. That's pretty good.
Well, okay, so this was the one that I kind of alluded to before. You made that IJA video, right, from 2000 to 2002, and you just glossed over Prim entirely. All you had to say about it was I won, but they didn't give me the Lucas Cup. Was there anything notable about that performance or that year other than the fact that you didn't get the Lucas Cup?
No, I mean, in the context of that video, the only reason, I mean, it was a big deal though for the context of that video, which is I won and I didn't get a Lucas Cup. Not that I was trying to spin it into a big conspiracy. It was just there was a lack of care and concern, and I didn't get my Lucas Cup. And the year that I felt I should have gotten the Lucas Cup, there was a Lucas Cup and I didn't win. Instead, I got 5th place. And so that was the year in 1990. That was the year I was really bitter about for decades. And so when I made that video, it was like, oh, I finally won, no Lucas Cup. It's like that's why I did it, was for the Lucas Cup. And it wasn't really. The final culmination of this whole thing resulted in so many Lucas Cups and so many awards and everything. It was important to focus on the fact that I didn't get the Lucas Cup, because then redemption at the very end, and I get all the Lucas Cups that I was owed, and I have nothing to complain about. That was the thing, is I had nothing to complain about anymore at the end of it. I just had to shut up and leave, right? Which is what I ended up doing. I'll figure out a reason later, and you're not getting any of this.
Yeah.
See ya.
Mark Neiser had that huge trophy.
The Neiser Cup, yeah. Well, there's also a behind-the-scenes rivalry between Neiser and Lucas as well, which I think enough time has passed. I think it's 50 years in terms of American history that they can finally reveal a conspiracy. So I think Mark, I'll check with him, but I think he'll be okay with me just kind of addressing this.
Not only do you have my permission, I'll tell you the whole story. So we competed in 1984 in the championships, and I'd done incrementally better each time, a little better. I think I was 8 times or something like that. Anyway, backstage, he's just gone on, and he just kicked ass. It was phenomenal. Crowd is going completely crazy. It's so obvious, no drops, perfect. And I'm just like, I'm on next. So I'm in the wings doing 2 or 5 ping pong balls. I don't know what it was, but I'm looking up, all the way up, looking up. And he comes off stage and walks across the stage to come over and runs into me with his shoulder, hits me in the shoulder. Of course, everything goes flying, and laughs and says, I'm only doing real juggling. At least I only did real juggling, or something along those lines. Right. And I'm like, what? What are you doing? Yeah, just couldn't friggin' believe it. He'd already won. You already won. And I was just going to go out and train like I did every year. You know, it was inevitable. I'm going to pull off the 3-club back cross pirouette. I've never done it in a show, but this is the this is the time to put it in.
That is the time to do it.
But he made me so mad. I was so hurt and so angry that I went out and I forgot I was competing and was just mad and did the best I'd ever done. I got second.
In Montreal, when I got second place, Lucas was there with his Lucas Cup, gave it to Mike Price because he got first. But before they announced the results, Lucas comes up to me, pats me on my shoulder and says, "There's always next year." And I'm like, spoiler, what are you talking about? And I didn't know how upset I should have been about that until I found out I actually got second place. I'm like, what is he talking about? How does he know? They haven't announced the results. What's he talking about? But apparently he knew, because why else would you say to someone there's always next year? Genuinely, I probably think that he always thinks he's doing something good because he can do no wrong. So I think that he was honestly consoling me. The timing was off by a bit. But the one thing I remember is that when Nizer won in 90, before they announced the results, he had taken a shower and put on a suit. And I'm like, he must know something. And so, but I thought maybe that's the formula. So in 2000, you may notice from the video, I'm wearing a suit.
Oh my God.
Oh, so that's how you win, right? You take a shower, you put on a suit, you get your first place award.
I didn't know for sure that I was going to win or anything, but I've been doing a ton of shows, and I knew Albert was going to have a suit on. So I put that in the car just to have it, and I did. I felt like I did okay. So it's like, okay, I did okay. I'm putting the suit on. I'm going to have it on because I'm not going to walk out and have to face that suit. So yeah, that was just another
I see
payback for him being a massive tool to me backstage in 1984.
So indirectly, I wore a suit because Albert wore a suit.
Yes.
I mean, I wore a suit because I saw you put on a suit. But
Yes.
you put on a suit because you knew Albert would be wearing a suit.
Yes, exactly right. And
Wow.
just think all this could have been avoided if Albert had just been fun and cool to hang out with. That all could have been avoided. You wouldn't have mental problems. I wouldn't be emotionally insecure right now.
One other thing I noticed about the video is how genuinely the Renegade MC did not like you. And I don't know if he had been
Steve
drinking.
Brown.
Oh, he has a name that people know. Shit.
He's very popular in the yo-yo community. Yeah, he was for a while. He was the reason why we were sponsored by Duncan because he worked at Duncan. And
Okay.
I think a lot of that was an act. I mean, back then I didn't know him. I didn't know him at all. But I mean, we're similar in our performance styles. That it's an over-exaggeration of our what we're really thinking, what we're really feeling. So I don't think he really hated me when he said that. I didn't take that.
Okay. Yeah.
I know whenever you're on stage saying stuff, there's a good percentage, there's a good chance that a lot of it is an act, which a lot of people miss when they see me performing. But, you know, I'd be a hypocrite to not notice that in other people as well.
Yeah, well, that was my question. I just based off of his, his demeanor in that clip, I was thinking that attitude toward you must have been pervasive at the time, or if people were genuinely offended by the way you hosted the juniors competition the year before.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there probably was a little bit of all of that. But I was so focused on what I had to say and what I was going to do and just selling it and the humor of it, that I only saw that as, okay, he's doing his thing and then I'm going to do my thing. So it's not really even a conversation. He's not even saying anything about me. I just know he's doing this now, and then I'm going to do my thing after he gets done with whatever he's saying. Like, I didn't say anything to what he did or what he said, right? Maybe it's just I didn't have the bandwidth to fit in more stuff to take on what he said. But I think it didn't need to, there didn't need to be any sort of rivalry between me and the Renegade MC anyway. But I thought it was hilarious because it didn't matter to me if I won or didn't win. I was going to predict my win regardless because there's always something else you can do later. So you can always, create an excuse or a reason in the vein of humor So that's why there's no fear in going out and predicting a win, because there's always a different path you can take if it goes in a different direction. I mean, just like my second place, I turned second place in 2000 into 2 years into a whole trilogy of terror, right? So it was worth it to not win that year, because when I did win, it was so much better, and there was so much more meaning behind it, and there's so much for the people that were actually following it. There was so much more entertainment in that. It was a whole arc of a character and his eventual demise.
Yeah, well, and the 2002 routine is just rich.
And a cardiovascular challenge at that.
So, you probably had to run that,
thousands of times.
All out, too.
Yeah, in private. I remember the week before, we stayed with Nizer at his house, and we went and practiced together, and I put up a big barrier so that they couldn't see what I was doing while I was practicing. And all he knew is that sometimes I was going to jump, because he saw my head pop up over the barricade. But I was real protective of that routine, because, the surprise factor was like the biggest thing in the whole routine, and couldn't see me practicing it at all. I rehearsed it a lot on ships, like late at night, when I didn't even want people working on the ships, even janitors or anyone seeing it, because who knows where the leak may be. So, and I practiced it full out with the smiles and everything, because you can't just start smiling when you perform it for the first time. That's a whole different thing that has to be embedded within the muscle memory of the routine. So every practice session was full out, smiling, waving, every single thing that you saw in that routine practiced over and over and over again. I was probably the leanest that year than I've ever been in my life, because it was so many calories burned running through that routine. It was exhaustive.
I keep watching. I still watch it just for fun. No, I mean, it's good to watch over and over again. It doesn't get old, I guess. It's kind of the best part about it. You've also been posting videos from the late 90s when you were working in Japan. That's the sort of stuff. So I turned 23 in about 2 weeks, and if my math is correct, you were about 23 when you were working in Japan, right?
I think so, yeah.
Did you do anything really at any point in your life other than juggle for a living, or do juggling related things? And did you enjoy performing in Japan? Because the juggling was it was just an interesting venue. I mean, can people come out and dance, but you were doing 10 balls,
Yeah, the disco. It was, they probably saw that as, well, we have a venue, we want some entertainment, we already have a juggler, let's put him in there. And then that'll start off the night, and then it'll just turn into a disco afterwards. And I mean, that's what it was. I was the first thing that happened in there that night. I think maybe it was almost, I remember there being tables there, and maybe, there was food. So I think people could sit there and eat and drink and watch me, and then dance afterwards and drink some more and probably eat some more too. That's an interesting question, though. Did I like performing? Because I don't think I thought of it that way. I think I thought of it as something I wanted to do and something I wanted to improve on. So, people always mention I look miserable when I'm practicing. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, you practice anything, it's not fun. I mean, the fun comes when those rare moments where you achieve what you're working on. But a lot of it is, there's fun in those little accomplishments. But I worked at gyms. I was the front desk guy, or I was the towel boy or something. I wasn't ever a trainer until recently. Because that would have required some sort of focus and taking a test and stuff, which I was not good at back then. So a lot of it was just juggling. And I was there. That was like my first real contract for juggling. So, but I was just pretty much practicing all the time and trying to do the routine I wished I could do. And, which was so aggravating for my boss, because I never could do it. And so he was always there taking notes, but it was the same thing as Steve Brown's introduction of me. Okay, he's doing his thing with his notes right now, and then I'm going to get back to practice when he's done with those notes. But the thought was never in my head I've got to help this guy out. and do a better routine, cut down the difficulty a little bit, which I probably should have done.
Yeah, his notes didn't inform any of your practice. You were on your own trajectory at that point.
Right.
You didn't know anything about juggling. So he was just some dude?
No, he was my boss. He was the head guy at that theme park. It was called Haustenbusch. It was a Holland Village themed theme park in Japan, in Nagasaki. It took me an hour to get there every morning. 3 different modes of transportation from the hotel in Sasebo. A bus, a train, and a bus. And then the day started. And then that guy gave me a ride home after that disco show.
So you would just do what, 2 shows a night, and you would just train all day before?
No, well, the contract started off as basically street performing 4 times a day. So you're just out in random different places in the park, and you do 15 minutes in like 100-degree heat in a costume that they make you wear but will only clean twice a week. And you're doing 4 shows a day, sweating your ass off. I was arguing with them. They finally allowed me to use the dryer. I couldn't use the washer, but I could throw my sweaty clothes in the dryer to dry off the sweat. The sweat's still in there, it's just dry. And so I couldn't wash my own clothes there, and I couldn't use my own clothes. I had to, it was a dead end. I had to use their clothes, and they had to be filled with sweat for most of the week. So that was 4 times a day. But then when they started having me do the disco show, it was just 2 street performing shows. And then I was allowed to wear my own costume for the 1 show at night. So then it was 3 performances. But there was about 5 hours, and I had to be there for 8 hours a day, whether I was working or not, just because that's how they justify paying you for the 8-hour day or whatever. But I'm just practicing anyway. So my practice really seamlessly went from one performance into another. So my performances were part of my practice, basically.
Right.
Just an 8-hour practice day. A little overkill. Okay, so my one question for you, you just started juggling again about 1.5 years. So what is your motivation? I mean, you're getting very good. So really simple question. Why?
I don't know, honestly. And that's part of the reason I just asked you that question, about what you were doing when you were 23. Is I work a full-time job. I mean, right now it's kind of different because I've been working from home. So I do have the flexibility to kind of come and practice a little bit. But I mean, to work from, 9 to 5 and then come home and go and practice for 2 hours, that's a really long day. And I honestly don't even understand why I'm doing it sometimes. But I think probably, when I stopped juggling, which was, I guess, right before I graduated high school, I was just kind of burned out. And I was like, there's how much better can I really get? Obviously you can get quite a bit better, as I'm now figuring out, but I was like, is it really going to be worth it to do any of that stuff? And then taking some time away and coming back, I'm like, there is plenty of work still to be done. And it's fun, too. And I mean, part of it is going to, reconnecting with people, which unfortunately everything's canceled this year, so we can't really do any of that. But I don't know. I feel like the community's changed a little bit too, just in terms of how people watch juggling. Nobody makes montages anymore. People just post individual tricks, which is fine too. So I think there's an opportunity there to bring something to the table. And I mean, maybe this is just some type of projection, but I feel like people don't have the same. Do people care as much about technical juggling now as they used to? I'm not really sure whether or not they do, but
there's always going to be different camps of it, and there's the same people that cared about it before still care about it, and there's always going to be more people coming up that have their preferences that either do care about it or don't. So I don't think it's a case of people don't care about it anymore. There's always going to be people that care about it because juggling starts off as a skill, and that's what draws people into it. So the more impressive you are with that skill, you can't deny the skill required to do 7 club backcrosses or 7 club 360s. Everyone will watch it. It might not be their preferred way of presenting or performing it. They may like watching the artistic styles that are only really good if there's some level of technique included with that presentation as well. I mean, there's only so much you can do with a basic 3-ball pattern that's going to hold well, my interest, no matter how great of a performance or other skills that you add to it. So yeah, there's always room for it. And I think the reason why people are doing just one tricks is simply the attention span of people today. No one's going to watch. I mean, some people will watch a montage. I'll get more people watching my my 5-club 5-up backcross 360, which took 10 seconds, you know, then I think that got like 1,000 views or something. But my 10-minute montage, somewhere around 400 views. So there's something to that. That 10-minute montage could be cut into a bunch of 10-second clips. I'd get way more views and everyone would watch every single trick. So, you know, that's the direction that I'm struggling with all the stuff I'm producing. I really like the long form format for like the Moxie games and the WJF, but more people will watch it if each person's routine is just their routine and there's none of this, okay, next up, or when we come back, all that, which actually it takes more time to edit that way also. So it's hard for me to adapt to that because it seems like a shortcut. And that's what all these videos are shortcuts for people's attention span, not just the people watching, but the people creating also have short attention spans for their creations. So it's kind of like, get it out quickly. You need that instant dopamine hit. Let's get that response. Let's fuel ourselves for the next one.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, Spencer asked me to do this thing, posting 100 tricks this year. And for some, I don't know if I was just feeling generous that day and decided, agreed to do that. But I'll post one trick and, over 100 people will like it and a bunch of people will comment on it. And then I spend, last year I spent almost the entire year just recording my best stuff and putting it into one video. And then, not really nobody watches that. But that's my plan for this year is to, highlight the best stuff, wait to put it out. Don't put it out the night that then, delay the gratification a little bit, put it out at the end of the year. And people are already asking like when, and I'm thinking whenever I film everything that I want to film.
When the year's over.
Yeah, or maybe even after the year is over. I don't even know. I guess for me,
that's a good way to do both. Give people what they want for their attention spans now, and then that can be used as a promo for the longer version.
I guess you have to, do what people want you to do. I mean, you really don't, but I guess it's a big audience.
You have to do what you want to get the response that you want from the people that you want that response from.
Well, I want everything from everybody, so you can't have.
Well, ideally, you find a way to do what you want, and you find a fan base of people that like what you do for yourself, and then everything that you do is genuine. It's not pandering, and then you've got people that are supporting you that agree with what your choices are and what you want to do with your life.
Yeah, at that point, it doesn't really matter how big the audience is.
Yeah, as long as your goal isn't a big audience.
Yeah, I'm at this point where I'm like, why am I spending so much time juggling? Why do I?
That's all the reason I think that you need for now.
Yeah, well, most of the time it's not fun, as we were kind of talking about earlier. It's really just a scheduled, anger management session. So
for me, without the management, just a scheduled anger session. But what made it fun for me is when I would shoot video and I would be able to watch the best moments from my practice sessions and then start putting together these montage videos. So watching it is a lot more fun than doing it, I think. Watching what you did in the third person. So that can make it kind of fun.
Yeah, right. Well, and the thing is, too, if you want to build skill sustainably, like we're talking about, you have to train systematically instead of haphazardly, which I feel like I've been training fairly haphazardly up till, just recently. And it's hard to justify the amount of time that it takes to really, or the amount of focus that it takes, I guess, to, improve at a really high level. So, I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine juggling being my work,
right.
Unless I'm getting paid to train or paid to train others.
That was always my hope with the WJF, is that the prize money would support those who excelled in it, and they'd be able to just live off of what they won and then train for the whole year, and that would be what they do. Hasn't worked out that way yet, but But going back to what you said about training more systematically, if you train more systematically, you'll waste less time. You won't practice for as long. So it won't be that much of a time commitment anymore if you're just working on what you're within your range of capability. Like those 8-hour practice sessions in Japan, 7 of them were probably, or even 8 of them were a waste of time. Like it was just like trick shot videos. I was just trying to get the trick shot for the video, but I wasn't learning anything. Even now I can hit all those tricks if you give me 50 or 100 tries, because that's how I practiced. I practiced it to be able to get it once in 100. Yeah. So it might happen the first time, it might happen the 100th time, but it's not going to happen 2 times in a row. So that's what you really want it to be consistent, so that you get it 2 times in a row. So like the practice you did today with 7 clubs, that was probably enough for today. Even if you did that just on your own, if that's your accomplishment. And once you get to the level you ended up with earlier, then you can start expanding to longer runs or the other tricks. But only until you reach the point where you're getting more consistent runs of what you're trying to accomplish now do you need to extend. And then you're shifting the time. You're not spending the time on that anymore. Now you can put that towards something else. So I'd always give myself like, all right, I'm spending 15 minutes on this trick or 10 minutes or whatever. And no matter what, that's it. So I might only get it 5 times, but still 10 minutes has passed. Then when I get to the point where I can just do it, like some tricks don't even practice anymore, like 5-ball 3-up 360s. I realized at one point, why am I still doing 10 of these? I mean, I get 10 in a row. They're fine. Let's move on.
Right.
I could work on the 2-stage 720 instead of the 3-up 360s.
Yeah. Well, then you can work toward maximizing the 10 minutes that you have set aside for one trick. And the goal doesn't become hitting it once. Your goals just, become a little bit loftier. I am probably going to have trouble reprogramming myself to think that 7 club practice was enough, because ideally I would spend 45 minutes, an hour on it, just going at it and trying tricks and all of that sort of stuff. People have different philosophies as far as that goes too. I know one thing that Spencer told me, which I thought was interesting, is like he feels that he can improve his 7 club pattern by going for tricks, by working on tricks. That makes the pattern better. And I tried that, and I was like, there's some validity to this, but it's like
we're thought on that.
Oh yeah.
Well, just like when I told you only 6 throws and then go into backcrosses, your 5 club pattern improved faster because it had to. So when you're doing tricks, it's a do or die situation. So it's not necessarily the tricks that are making the pattern better. It's that you're forced to make the pattern better so you can do the tricks.
Right.
So it's a reverse. I mean, it works either way you think of it, I suppose. But you don't need to do the tricks for your pattern to get better.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, the ideal that I keep coming back to is when in 2005, Vova in the endurance competition did about 30 catches with 7 clubs, and it looked okay. It didn't look great. And the next year he came back and did, almost 200 catches, and it looked pretty great the entire time. And that was just 1 year. I've been working on 7 clubs for far too long now to, have not employed whatever approach he used over the course of that 1 year, which I've now figured out is just, runs of 25, 30 catches clean, and building up really exactly what we've been talking about.
Well, and everything that you did today was always in place from the beginning, right? The start was perfect, the angles were perfect, and then it was just building up the strength to continue that. And that's what he did for that next year is, working on the beginnings of it and the ends, not so much the endurance runs. Some of those, sure, because that's going to build up your strength, but the majority of the work is in the start and the finish.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so that's why I was saying today was enough for that, because, no need to go for the trick. You can do the tricks. You can do the tricks if the pattern is set up right. What you're working on now is making sure that the pattern is always set up right. And then the tricks will be just as easy, if not easier, than they were before. So that ability is not going to go anywhere. I mean, you took how many years off, and you can still do all this, right? It came back within a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So, yeah. 3 days of practice and I'm back to as good as I ever was, really. I mean, as long as I practice all the things that I'm trying to get back. So it never goes anywhere. So don't worry, unless you've got a competition coming up in a week or two. You know, you can put some stuff on the back burner to refine some of the other elements that will lead you into those more consistently.
Yeah. Well, I always took such an endurance-based approach. Like, what's my record with 7 clubs? How can, like, it's 100. I got to get over 100 today. Every day I'm trying to go for more than 100 catches with 7 clubs over and over again. And then maybe I'd get 110 or whatever, you know. But I wasn't thinking about, am I making this pattern perfect, you know?
Right. Yeah, the better question is, how many times can I get 30 in a row?
Man. Yeah, I got to work on that.
Yeah. But you'll get there. You'll get there. Well, I thought also we could give Albert a chance to redeem himself, because you may not know this, but he's a domain registration connoisseur.
Oh.
He owns hundreds of domains, everything from, like, I think he's got like bobbymay.com.org. Like, he's got all these famous jugglers' names in the URLs. Now, when I first formed the World Juggling Federation, and once I got the deal with ESPN, I started contacting jugglers, you know, yourself included, inviting them to come and either perform, or if they were competitors, to compete or break records. So in Albert's case, he had just been showing people his picture of his 13-ring flash. I was like, hey, is 30 feet high enough for you to attempt to flash 13 rings or 14 rings? He said it could be done. And so I told him, well, I've got this deal with ESPN. I'm producing sport juggling competitions. He said he would come, and he said, what's the name of the organization? And I said, World Juggling Federation. That day, or the next day, he bought worldjugglingfederation.com. And to this day, he still owns it. Well, I thought through this video, we might give Albert an opportunity to turn over a new leaf and offer to give us, for the cost of the domain registration, not for a profit, worldjugglingfederation.com, even though everyone knows to go to thewjf.com now. So that's one thing I think I'll offer him the opportunity to do, to come forward and apologize. And because also he didn't show up. So he said he would show up. We promoted him, and I never heard from him again. I won't say never, because we're all still alive, but to this day, I haven't heard back from him on that at all.
Maybe as a good faith measure, Albert, if you decide to help us out here and donate this domain name, we could have the Lucas Cup be involved in the Olympic festival and be part of that festival. Obviously, the Nizer Cup will have equal time on the other side, but these two interesting, yours could be for second place and mine would be for first place.